The cameras were rolling, the crowd was buzzing, and Senator J.D. Vance was halfway through his carefully prepared speech when something unusual caught his eye. Just a few rows back, sitting among the sea of faces, was a man in uniform. Not the kind of uniform one wears for show, but the kind that carries years of sacrifice stitched into its fabric. The man's broad shoulders were shaking, his head bowed, and his hands covered his face. He was crying. The moment was jarring. Politicians are trained to keep their eyes forward, to stick to the script, to ignore distractions. But J.D. Vance couldn't ignore this. His words faltered for a brief second, and the teleprompter kept scrolling. He looked at the audience, then back at the man. Without thinking, he set aside his notes, walked away from the podium, and stepped down into the crowd. The crowd grew silent. This wasn't in the program. This wasn't politics. This was human. Vance approached the man, placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, and asked softly, "Brother, are you all right?" The man lifted his head, and the tears in his eyes revealed a story far deeper than any speech could tell. His name was Michael, a decorated veteran who had served 3 tours overseas. But the war hadn't stayed overseas. It had followed him home through sleepless nights, flashbacks, and the crushing silence of feeling forgotten. "My family's gone, Senator," Michael whispered, his voice trembling. "My wife couldn't handle it anymore. Took the kids. Said I wasn't the same man she married. I gave everything to this country, and now I feel like I've lost everything that mattered most." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People leaned in, tears already forming in their eyes. J.D. Vance felt his chest tighten. He could have offered the usual politician's words of platitudes about bravery, sacrifice, and resiliency, but something in Michael's broken voice demanded more than polished phrases. It demanded truth. "Michael," Vance said, his voice steady but heavy with emotion, "you are not alone. What you've given can't be measured in medals or in speeches. It's written in the freedom we're standing on right now. And I'll be damned if I let you believe for 1 second that your life has no worth." The crowd erupted into applause. But Vance wasn't done. He crouched down so he was eye level with the veteran. "I grew up in a broken home. I know what it feels like to think you don't matter, to believe no one sees your pain. But I promise you these people do care. I care. And I'm not going to just talk about helping veterans like you. I'm going to make sure we build a country where families don't have to be torn apart after war, where men like you can heal and still be fathers, still be husbands, still be whole." Michael's tears didn't stop, but there was a flicker of something else now, a hope. He nodded slowly, and Vance pulled him into an embrace that was raw, unscripted, and real. By this point, the event had transformed. The crowd wasn't listening to a senator giving a speech. They were witnessing a man standing beside another man in his darkest moment. Mothers wiped their eyes, veterans stood to their feet and saluted, and young people who had never thought much about service suddenly saw it in human form. The cameras captured it all. Later, pundits would argue about whether it was staged, or whether Vance had broken from protocol wisely or recklessly. But for those in the room, none of that mattered. They had seen something rare in politics: humanity. When J.D. Vance returned to the stage, he didn't pick up his notes again. He looked out at the crowd and said, "I had a speech prepared tonight. But what just happened, that's the real speech, because if we can't stop for each other, if we can't see each other's pain, then what are we even fighting for?" The applause was thunderous, but beneath the cheers was something more powerful, a collective resolve. The people in that room would not forget Michael's face, his tears, or the moment a senator laid aside his own spotlight to shine it on someone else. By the end of the night, Michael wasn't alone anymore. Dozens of people surrounded him, offering numbers, prayers, and promises. And as he walked out of that hall with his head held just a little higher, the message was clear: healing doesn't begin with programs or policies, it begins with people seeing each other. And that was the story everyone carried home, that sometimes the most powerful words spoken are the ones not written in the script.